This is Anthony Richardson, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is AJ Brown, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
This is Josh Allen, and you're listening to RosterWatch.
Yes, the Underdog Pick'em Show every Saturday after the SiriusXM show. Man, Cody and I are almost talked out after that deal, but we are here bringing you the picks for Underdog as far as our favorites so far. Remember to use promo code ROSTER at Underdog Fantasy for a sign-up bonus up to 50%, up to $250, or a sign-up bonus at 50%, up to $250. Make sure you go sign up now. They have all kinds of different specials for this weekend, a bunch of freebies, all the rest of it. We're going to be going over some of our favorite picks in the Pick'em lobby at Underdog. We're going to be doing it every single week, as we said, after the SiriusXM show. So right around 5:15, we took a little bit of time today getting ready. But you can see Cody's here in studio, man. We're right here in the beautiful Texas Hill Country, live.
God's country.
And God willing, let's make a bunch of money in the Underdog
Week
Pick'em
one,
lobby.
baby. I mean,
Yep.
football's officially back, and pods are going to be rolling after this week. And this is just the kickoff, right?
Yeah, dude. All right, so let's go over some of our favorites. We talked about whether we should go game by game or what we should do. I think honestly, man,
I think we'll be here for an hour.
Yeah, I think what we can do just to get in, get out, get some people their picks, and just kind of go over some of our favorites. And so, do you want to go first? Do you want to give some of yours?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm not sure if it's still out there or not, but I know there's some freebies available. And the freebie was Dak Prescott half total yards against Cleveland. So you got to make sure you take that. But I think we start, Alex, kind of in a place where we've found a little bit of an edge, which is in the receiving market for the running backs. And there's a handful of guys that we really like. And I'll start out with my couple favorites off the top was Travis Etienne at 20.5 receiving yards for Jacksonville against Tampa. That game is one that I kind of like. Jacksonville against Tampa. Jacksonville against Miami. Sorry, I watched Jacksonville against Tampa in the scrimmage in preseason. I really liked what I saw from Travis Etienne in the receiving game. Obviously, we know how prolific he was in college, but also when I was down there at the training camp, I mean, it was like Texas route after Texas route going to Travis Etienne. And we think Miami's going to get up hot on these guys early, like Miami does early in the season. If they get up to a 20-point lead, 25-point lead, Etienne's not going to leave the game. Etienne's going to get a lot of that dump-off work as they try to, scrounge back points and scrounge back yardage. So I like Travis Etienne at 20.5 receiving yards. And then we both had Chase Brown at 14.5.
Well, and what happens with the Chase Brown thing, and that thing had moved up. It moved up from 11.5, and I guess by the end of the show today, it was at 14.5. I think it's still fine. It's just we don't know how much Jamar Chase is going to play tomorrow. We know that T. Higgins isn't going to play. And while everybody's saying that, for the DFS stuff to go play Andre Yosivas, and of course on DraftKings, I think you should probably go ahead and do that. But it's just if this is a bunch of stuff where Jamar Chase, and I hope it doesn't happen to the people who have him in fantasy, but if he plays only 50% of snaps or something like this, and he is truly limited, or hopefully maybe he doesn't play. I think he plays, but if he is truly limited, they're gonna have to do things to generate some stuff in the passing game, and we've seen that Chase Brown can certainly be somebody who can provide that kind of option for them. One of the things that they had said that they really wanted to see him work on was his ability to operate without the ball in his hands, basically in pass protection, because they think as far as a pass catcher, he can really do it. Like he can be a true sort of 1-2 punch with Zach Moss. And if this is like, I just keep thinking to myself, 14.5 yards. If we're talking about a spot like this, the only thing that would worry me is if Cincinnati got into a situation where they were, up super high on them, and you wouldn't have to be in a spot where you'd have to kind of depend on Chase Brown as an extension of the run game through the passing game. But we talked about this. It's like even with that being said, there's such a lack of options. You have to think of Chase Brown even as it's 14.5 receiving yards.
Well, yeah, I mean it's hypothetically one catch and a lot of opportunities in screen game, and I don't know. Would you rather, you brought up the rushing aspect, and like we know Zach Moss is there, but when I look at all the things that are offered with Chase Brown, it's 33.5 rushing, it's 14.5 receiving, and the total would be 51.5 rush plus receiving. Like 51.5 still feels like a very respectable number if this game gets the way we expect it to go.
But I honestly, dude, would you be that surprised if Chase Brown beat that just on the receiving alone with like 2 long catches?
No.
Given the lack of options this week, Chase Brown, 14.5 receiving yards. That's one that Cody and I both had, and one that I believe in, and having a bunch of my entries as far as underdog pick'ems this week.
Chase is injured, right? We brought this up on the show. Did not practice a couple days, or limited a couple days, sorry, and then full on Friday. I didn't see these numbers up on Underdog. They have him for 66.5 receiving yards. Touching it, staying away.
Oh, no, man. I'm not touching that. They're
Okay.
We have a bunch of good picks. I have no idea
I know.
what Jamar Chase is going to do.
I just had to bring it up. Well, Chase he's in the conversation.
Jamar Chase. Well, no, he's not injured.
No, but like on the injury report, he was brought up.
Well, right, but you keep saying he's injured. He's not. He's on the injury report for rest.
Okay,
He's
that
not
stuff,
injured.
it all works together. He's not going to play the maximum of reps.
Right.
He's been on the injury report. We know he's not injured, but in technicality, he's going to get the flow of an injured player.
Maybe. Or maybe he goes out. I mean, he has Christian Gonzalez to deal with if he's out there. But even if that's you tell me
You like the under?
he could double that.
Okay.
Or he could go out
up.
and he could be pouty and he could not want to play and he could go for 22 yards. That's a complete don't touch it kind of.
Had to bring it up. They also have McCaffrey numbers out there, even though he's currently questioned to be questioned with a calf injury.
What are his rushing numbers? Because you might want to look at, because they got Isaac Guerrero going today. It looks like he's going to go.
His rushing number is 75. His receiving number is 35. His total is 115. I kind of like the under.
Or the lower.
Yes, sorry. I like the lower.
You can't say over under.
I like underdog. I like the lower on underdog.
Yeah.
Do you like
that's
receiving?
That's a stay away too, man. No, as far as receiving yards
Tony
yards
Pollard,
for running backs, you do Tony Pollard, I believe here is sitting at
it was 9.5 when I got it.
9.5. We'll see what it is now.
Oh,
So now we're looking at 11.5. I think it's still good, but not as good as it was at 9.5. But I think we can go with Pollard. The other receiving back that I was most interested in was James Conner. Right now, James Conner is sitting at 11.5 receiving yards. That's actually up from before the radio show when we were talking about it at 10.5. But I just feel like, man, if Arizona, and I realize that not everybody feels like Arizona is going to be in a trailing game script here, but if it is, dude, just go back and look through James Conner's game log at some of this stuff. He's got these games with 57, 63 yards receiving, all this stuff. If this is a spot, not only James Conner, I like James Conner with the more than 11.5 receiving yards in this game, because I think it's going to be a game where they're trying to keep up with Josh Allen and with the Superman stuff he's going to do, even with the depleted surrounding cast. I think they're going to be trying to keep up. And I think Greg Dortch, his own underdog, is sitting at 3 receptions. And if this is a game, it's almost like a weird sort of correlation, right? It's like a game flow correlation where we're saying, if this is something where we think that James Conner is going to get elevated receiving yards, we think it could be in playing catch-up mode. And if they're kind of playing catch-up mode and trying to just dump off and get underneath the zone of the defense, Greg Dortch over the middle, especially with what Trashman has told us from training camp, with how heavily involved he was, I just think 3 receptions over the course of this football game for Dortch. Those are 2 that sort of correlate, because what I'm saying is I think they get behind, and I think that both those guys are just easy outlets as, again, extensions of the run game. So another one of those guys. I thought there might have been another running back that I had, and I'm having to go between my phone and the desktop here because we have that's it. Those are as far as the receiving running backs. The guys,
White.
The guys that I've had. As far as Rachaad White, man, I just like him as far as his fantasy score. I think he's sitting on here at 13.55. As far as, and underdog is indeed half point PPR. Oh, sorry, you were typing in. Okay, White. Is it still 13.55? Yep, 13.55. Dude, Rashad White has like the second best matchup in fantasy this week, and Liam Cohen has come in this week and said he's the guy, kind of going against what Bowles had said about these other guys getting mixed in a hot hand approach. That's not gonna happen. Cody, you could tell them about what you saw at training camp, but it's like I don't see it happening at all. We have Rashad White as one of our top plays of the week in DFS, and somebody who's in just a terrific matchup. 13.55 fantasy points here to me feels like more of a kind of a floor like expectation. So that's one of mine for sure. And then the other one for me is on Underdog. Remember, use promo code ROSTER. Go sign up. Every dollar that you deposit, you're going to get that matched in bonus funds. It's a 50% bonus all the way up to $250. Plus, there's all kinds of freebies on board right now. They even have this one called Vulture Protection,
which is amazing.
Where it's like
Josh Jacobs got one.
If you pick a running back to score and another running back on the team ends up scoring, you get your money refunded on that play. So make sure and use that. Just a bunch of great stuff at Underdog right now.
We got over 300 people watching right now. We appreciate you guys all over on Roster Watch on YouTube. Click that like button. Click subscribe. Again, this show is going to be every Sunday or every Saturday night after the Roster Watch Sirius XM show. We do got a couple questions in the chat though, really quickly. Okay. We got Loading in the chat. Great name. Starting Godwin or Tank Dell in fantasy football this week.
Is it PPR or is it half?
He does not distinguish whether it's PPR or whether it is half. But I think on the surface, especially where our rankings are right now, we have Godwin currently almost consensus at 24, Dell consensus about 29. So we like Godwin in that matchup across that. We appreciate you guys chapping in. Keep on doing it. Click that like button. Click subscribe.
Yep. The other one guy who I have as far as fantasy scoring here is Devon Achane. I think that this is going to be a game with the Miami Dolphins where it's good. It's good matchups across the board. And whenever we look at Achane's fantasy output, more than I like to look at his rushing attempts, more than I like to look at his his receiving or his rushing yards. I'm not sure how Achane's going to get there, just with how much how much different ways he was used in this preseason and what we'd heard from camp, lining up outside, getting these deep balls on wheel routes, stuff like this. So I don't know whether it's through the receiving game, whether it's through the running game, whether it's just a big play that he breaks off, but he's going to score more than 12.65 fantasy points. It's like it would be a disaster if he doesn't get to 12.65. So I know this is a bunch of mores, right? In the first game of the year, we're gonna have a bunch of mores because what we're going on is things that we've noticed and anecdotal data from or anecdotal evidence from the practices that we've attended and stuff, rather than the data and things that we'll use next week and moving forward, most certainly. But doesn't feel like Achane's going to go for more than 12.65 fantasy points on Underdog. He's just going to.
I mean, that's literally what we saw from him last year. The electricity, the Chris Johnson output, 13 fantasy points is what, a 70-yard touchdown.
Yeah, and he could do it on one play.
That's what he brings.
But I'm not saying it'll be like that, but I'm saying it's going to be 142-yard reception for 4.7 points, and then he's going to, what I'm saying? Then he's going to probably get 11, 12 rushes, right? Probably 3, 4 more targets, and whatever he does with those remaining ones, it's going to be he's going to get to 12.65. Man, take the higher on 12.65 fantasy points for Devon Achane.
One of my favorites I think maybe my favorite of the entire week is Cooper Kupp. The number's coming in at 5.5 right now, 5.5 receptions. I'm going to go higher on that. Last year when he played over 90% of the snaps, his targets were 12, 10, 12, 10, 8, 7, 9, 8, 6. 5.5 receptions. It's Cooper Kupp. What did Byron tell us for training camp?
He looked if you just based it on the 2 or 3 days that Byron was at training camp, he would have said that he would have taken Cooper Kupp in a vacuum over Puka Nacua.
He's the number one. And what do we know out of Cooper Kupp when he's number one? He's getting more than 5.5 receptions.
Yeah, for sure. A few others that I had here. So let me pull this one up. Staying in that staying in that Detroit game, I think that's interesting. Jamison Williams higher than 3 receptions. Look, if anything, unless all we've heard all summer has been a total lie, if this guy's only involved in a 51-point total for 3 receptions, everything that we've heard, like we can just throw everything out that Tim Twentyman and Dave Burkett and everybody said about Jamison Williams' role in this offense. If this is going to be a back and forth scoring game, which everybody thinks it's going to be, that for me is just a super obvious one. I think that I'm fine with Amon-Ra St. Brown and whatever. I think what was his ad? It was let me go back and look. It was just it didn't feel like quite as easy to get up to. Amon-Ra, let's see.
I think it was we talking. I think it was
it 89.5?
I think you're a little high there.
82.5. Yeah. Okay, I'm fine with that. And with Jamison, I don't know exactly. It just feels like to me all they've talked about is who's the number 3, and it's like this year it hasn't really mattered anything. It's like all right, well, JMO is already the number 2. It's like that's established. He's come along on his own. He's the 14th, 12th overall pick in the draft.
12.
Like this is an incredibly awesome player. Like if he doesn't get 3 catches, we've been lied to this whole time about his level of involvement. Again, between a 51 and a 52-point total in this game, Jamison Williams, one of the ones that I really like.
Amon-Ra hit that number 11 out of 16 times last year.
Just a few others. Targets.
Targets was a hammer. We got multiple for targets. I got a couple plugged in right now that I haven't hit the button on yet, but we talked about him on Sirius. Christian Kirk, 4.5.
Oh God, 4.5 targets.
4.5 targets,
dude. We'll go put that one. I'm gonna put one in right now.
Sorry, 4.5 receptions.
Okay,
I read that wrong.
Okay,
I was wrong. But
okay, well, that's harder.
That's a little harder.
That's harder.
My bad.
Yeah, no targets. The target one that I was most interested in was Malik Neighbors is sitting at 8.5 targets. Again, and this isn't anything where we can claim we've been lied to because we didn't go to Detroit Lions training camp. We did go to Giants training camp.
Didn't you have 17 targets in one practice?
I will be
scrimmage practice.
I will be amazed if we come out of this game with Malik Neighbors getting 8 targets versus Minnesota.
Under 8, less than 8 targets, right?
No, I mean if he gets 8, that'll go less, right?
Yeah.
I will be amazed if it's an 8 target game. This thing's going to be 11 targets. It's going to be 12 targets. It's going to be something like that. Very confident in that one. Malik Neighbors more than or higher than 8.5 targets. The other one we talked about earlier, you mentioned Justin Jefferson. His is sitting at 10 targets. That was one that you really liked.
Yeah, him and Pittman. Pittman, and I think London was also at 8.5. London was 8.5. Neighbors was 8.5, and Pittman was 8.5. And I liked each of those ones specifically. I mean, those guys just feel like they're the target dominators in here. Again, over 400 people tapping in right now. We do have a couple more questions. We'll answer them right quick. Only reason we're going to answer them tonight is because there's no Start Sit Show tomorrow morning because I'll be traveling. But every week after this, there will be a Start Sit Show on Sunday mornings, and I'll be the host of that. So we do have a question from our boy Matt Cassidy. He says, DJ Moore or Michael Pittman at wide receiver. We have Michael Pittman at wide receiver 12 consensus, DJ Moore wide receiver 17 consensus, and we're all in line with those guys being ahead of each other. The other question we did have pop in here was from Soggy Danger, which is Brian Robinson, Chuba, or Chase Brown. I know right off cuff I have Brian Robinson ranked highest amongst those guys. Do you know? And exactly? Is
it in PPR?
Did not distinguish.
Yes, he did. Pick one PPR. If you have a lot of conviction about Brian Robinson, I think it's probably fine.
That's the one I think. And then the last one we'll take here, but then we'll get a last prop in and we'll get out of here. Is Brock Bowers or George Kittle?
Oh, Kittle.
You're not buying it. I think it's pretty. I think he's a whole tier ahead of him, right?
Yeah, it's Kittle. Bowers has been a little bit banged up too. So
Kittle, we
we'll see.
have consensus at 7. Brock Bowers consensus at tight end 15. Again, you can get all these rankings over at rosterwatch.com with a pro or premium membership.
And just remember, man, go to YouTube, help us out, help them out. Go help yourself out, man, because there's so many freebies right now. Use the promo code ROSTER at sign up. You get 50% deposit bonus all the way up to $250. That's free money for you to play with. Use these picks. Or fade them. It's whatever. If you think we're donks, man, you can fade the picks. But yeah, man, go to underdog.com. We're gonna be doing this every single Saturday after the radio show, as Cody mentioned, starting next week, because he got his flight messed up today. He's back to South Carolina, so no live sit start stream tomorrow. If you guys have live sit start questions, I'll have a live sit start thread up at Roster Watch. That's for our pro members. You can get in there. Trashman and I, maybe Cody from the airplane.
I might buy some internet on the plane so I can respond to some questions.
And we'll be responding to them there. So I'm not sure. Like you got one more final pick that you're interested
I got
in
two more rush plus receiving yards that I love. David Montgomery, 63.5 rush plus receiving. Jahmyr Gibbs has been banged up. Detroit's got a top 2 offensive line in all of football, according to the Roster Watch offensive line rankings. This game's going to be, 30-30, 35-35. It's going to be a great game. 63.5 is far too low for Montgomery, who works in both facets. And the last one, I'll go Ty Chandler, 38.5 rush plus receiving yards, higher, because we love Aaron Jones, but everything we've heard coming out of Vikings camp is it's 1 and 2. These two guys, that's it. And it's going to be like a 55-45 or a 50-50. So Ty Chandler higher than 38.5 rush plus receiving yards.